Hi everybody, it's Kristen. We are here for our first Periscope of this week. I am still a little bit tired. I know I kind of futzed out on everybody Friday because I was just so tired. I just didn't have the energy to do anything, and obviously here I've got Sadie sleeping, and I didn't rebraid my hair this morning, so it's a mess. But I'm here today, and I actually did plan out a scope for today. I'm still pretty tired because we're just in a tiring season of trying to get our school year to where it starts smoothly every morning, and that's not really happening, so that's exhausting. But anyways, we're working on it. We homeschool, so the buck stops with Mama, and sometimes Mama gets real tired, such as today. But yeah, anyways, I'm here today, and so what we're going to do today is we are going to talk about why gestational diabetes diets do not work, which is the case for many, many, many moms who find themselves diagnosed with gestational diabetes. Now, before we jump into that, let me introduce myself. I'm Kristen from naturalbirthandbabycare.com, and I have Sadie on my back, but she's sleeping. I'm hoping that she's going to sleep the entire time. And we talk about everything pregnancy, birth, baby, and then we also have a podcast, or I do a podcast called the Birth, Baby, and Life Podcast, which those of you who are regular podcast listeners are going to want to check out tomorrow's episode. I've got a guest, and it's just a really fantastic episode. But we talk about everything birth, baby, and we talk about life issues too on the podcast. So here on the scopes, I try and cover some life issues too. We've had some pretty good scopes. Last week we had some great ones. I actually was interviewed on Thursday last week and then came onto the scope late because the interview ran way over. I wasn't anticipating the interview to take an hour and a half, but it was just fabulous. And then I was able to have like a lot of energy for the scope, and y'all also got to see my goats. Speaking of that, another cool thing is I finally had the scopes going up on the website. I want to say we've done 3 full weeks of scopes now, with the exception of like my pitiful scope last Friday to tell you I wasn't going to do a scope. But so this is our 4th week, which is kind of crazy. I committed to doing it for 2 weeks, and it seems to be going pretty well. But I've got the first full week, and I think maybe a couple more up on the site. But I set up like a short link for you ladies or you daddies if you want to get to it, and that is birthbabylife.com/scopes. Plural. So birthbabylife.com/scopes, and you can check out all the past scopes there. That's just kind of like an index listing of all the scopes, and I'm numbering them. I'm only missing one scope, which I forgot to tell Periscope to save that one after I did that one. It was the 4th one that I did, and I couldn't capture that one, and after that I found a service that would capture them for me so I wouldn't forget them anymore. But all of them except for that one are going up, and I'm hoping to get caught up with all of the other ones, and so that every day I'm able, after the live broadcast is done, I'm able to go post it on the website. Because if you're new to Periscope, then you may not know, but you can only watch a Periscope for 24 hours after it happened, and then it just poof, it's gone for good. But there's some good information, so they're up on the website for you. And that way you can also share them with your friends or share them on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. I would appreciate you sharing the scopes if you enjoy them live. If you're on an iPhone, you can just swipe to the left. If you're on an Android phone, just swipe up. And there's a button there for you to share it with your friends. You can tweet it or share it on Facebook or whatever, and that's pretty cool. And then if you like something that I'm saying, you can tap your screen, and that shows a little heart, which makes me feel good. And then also you can have comments and questions. I enjoyed it on a lot of the scopes last week. I got questions, and that was pretty cool because I like questions. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the topic of our scope today because I'm a couple minutes late, and I have to go teach a mama baby birthing class at 1:30, so I can't take a lot of time. So with that, we're going to talk about why diets for gestational diabetes don't work. And I actually took some notes, so if you see me glance down at my notes, then that's why, because I'm looking at those. So more and more moms are being diagnosed with gestational diabetes today. And really, we could do an entire scope or a whole series of scopes on that because the validity of the diagnosis might be sort of suspect in my in my mind. We'll have to do a scope on in my mind sometime. But anyways, it's just, I've seen a lot of evidence that maybe it's not the disease that it's leading up to be. And I guess the biggest thing to take away from that is that if you have a mom who starts pregnancy with diabetes, such as type 1 or legitimate type 2 diabetes, and that's uncontrolled, the differences between that and a mom who is diagnosed with quote-unquote gestational diabetes, the differences in outcome for her pregnancy and for her baby. So the mom who had pre-existing diabetes and the mom with gestational diabetes, what is going on and the risks for their babies are very, very different. So the risk for a mom with gestational diabetes is a bigger baby, okay? And when I say that, I mean like little Michelin Man kind of tubby baby, right? When a mom with uncontrolled pre-existing diabetes has many, many, many more risk factors. And also their babies are big, but not proportionately so. So their babies have normal-sized heads and then really big bodies, whereas a mom with gestational diabetes just tends to grow a uniformly bigger baby. Hensey Goer wrote an article about gestational diabetes called "The Emperor Has No Clothes." It doesn't really fit the diagnostic criteria to be an issue, an illness, okay? What we do know is that insulin resistance during pregnancy is naturally increased. And we do know that a mom that develops quote-unquote gestational diabetes during her pregnancy is at greater risk of developing type 2 diabetes later on in her life. So what conclusions can you draw from that, and how do we apply that today? So I do think that there's reason to stand up and take notice if you're being told that you're at risk for gestational diabetes. And I think there's reason to, I don't know that I think there's reason to take the test. That's another topic in and of itself. But, but if you're worried about it, I think that that's a valid thing. Or if you do take the test and they tell you, okay, your blood sugars or your blood glucose, that's blood sugar, was high, I think there's reason to stand up and listen. Now, I think that the reason why we might be seeing skyrocketing diagnosis is because women today are eating what we in the United States call a SAD diet, the standard American diet, but it's really the standard modern world diet for most societies in the first world, so to speak, and really even all over the world. But we eat a bit differently than women in the past did. So when we couple the diet that we eat today, which is super high in carbohydrates and super high in sweets and super low in fat and relatively low in nutrients, sadly enough, with already increased insulin resistance during pregnancy, we might see some problems. And continuing to eat that diet year after year after year after year is especially going to predispose anybody, but especially a woman who's already has perhaps less insulin sensitivity. It's just going to predispose you to later diabetes. Okay, so the reason why the diets don't work is because they kind of fundamentally ignore what's going on, right? So the diabetic diet overall, it fails for multiple reasons. Firstly, because it totally ignores what causes insulin spikes and blood sugar spikes. I mean, it completely ignores that. I hate to say it, but it's true. And also because it completely ignores what a pregnant woman and her baby need. So not only do you have strike one, which is true for anybody, anywhere in the world who's developing signs of diabetes, but you also have strike two, which is devastating, really, to moms and babies. Because if you're not nourishing a pregnant woman, how can you expect a good outcome from her pregnancy? So a typical diabetic diet has a prescribed number of carbohydrate a day, or a prescribed carbohydrate level, and a prescribed calorie level, and often it's combined with low salt, which is like strike three, and you're out for a pregnant woman. And that's the sad thing. That's the tragic thing, is that it's not 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out to the medical team. It's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out to the pregnant woman or to her baby. And what woman what woman wants to put herself and her baby at risk? And sadly, I think that the turning a blind eye towards this culturally and then also in obstetrics puts moms and babies at risk. So what we need to understand is that sugar is what causes an insulin response, and sugar is what is flooding and causing high blood sugar. So it seems pretty elementary. I mean, I'm teaching a first grader right now, and he's kind of having a little bit of trouble grasping math. But I'm guessing that if we asked him, Galen, if you eat fat or you eat sugar, which one do you think would make your blood sugar rise? And he could probably say sugar. He would guess that, right? Now, I know that that doesn't always hold true because, you know, they say that fat makes us fat, but that actually didn't hold up. But it is true that pouring sugar into the bloodstream increases blood sugar level. So if you eat dietary sugars, it increases blood sugar level. And the thing to realize is that sugar is not just candy. It's not just sodas. It's not just sweets. It's anything with carbohydrates. So whole grain breads or wholemeal or tortillas. My kids are on tortilla kick right now. Or rice or anything. I mean, and fruit. So what if you looked at the title of this scope, I put a whole bunch of things that everybody thinks, oh, that's healthy, you know, that's an apple and a banana and a piece of whole corn. That's healthy. And then I put the bowl of white rice. And some people might say, oh, no, you shouldn't eat white rice. But really, all of those foods are high carbohydrate foods. And in the body, they all get broken down into sugar. Now, it is true, if you are eating that apple along with a full meal where you've got fats and everything else is relatively low carb, so there's less fiber and stuff and there's plenty of protein, your body is not going to transition that into just pure sugar as fast as possible. But ladies, so many of us in our regular life are told that, like, you know, a salad and an apple and a glass of fresh squeezed juice or whatever is healthy. And so there's really nothing there to help absorb or mitigate the blood sugar response. There's nothing there. There's really no protein, or maybe a little tiny bit of lean chicken, which isn't the highest quality protein in the world. And then there's just nothing but sugar and carbs. There's no fat. There's nothing else to absorb that. So when we eat a diet like that in pregnancy, blood sugars just skyrocket after you eat a meal like that. And then your insulin response is already deadened during pregnancy. And there's different theories on that. Probably an adaptive mechanism to make sure that baby gets all the energy that he or she needs. So there's more free circulating energy, more free circulating sugar because the insulin isn't cleaning it up as quickly as possible. But I mean, that surges and you and baby are like both high wire, right? Because of that sugar surge, and then insulin has to truck out and just go haywire trying to control it, and eventually that system just breaks down. And that's where we end up with true diabetes. But, but that's just, I don't understand where they get that to be a good diabetic diet and why they give it to pregnant women. And then the second reason is that, well, there's no nourishment in there because you're stripping out the fats, which are requirements for absorbing nutrients from things like vegetables. And then you're eating carbohydrates, which offer energy, but not much else, okay? With proteins, you're getting proteins. And fats are essential to helping you absorb the minerals and the vitamins and the micronutrients. That's why they're called fat soluble. Now, there are some, like B vitamins, are water soluble. So you'll get those regardless. But like all of the hormone precursors that your body uses, they require fats. So when you're not eating the good fats, and when you're not eating the protein that your body needs to build your baby and everything, you're not having a healthy pregnancy. Your body isn't able to, it's not able to do what it needs to do. It doesn't have the raw materials. All it's got is empty calories and maybe low levels of empty calories. So there's not even enough calories to maintain what you and your baby need, and there's not enough raw materials that those calories need to be utilized. So the diet is just a failure overall. It doesn't work. And so a much more sensible diet for a mom to follow who is concerned about gestational diabetes or has been diagnosed with gestational diabetes is a lower carbohydrate diet. Not no carbohydrate. I wouldn't even say very low carbohydrate for a pregnant woman, but you need to be at a lower level of carbohydrate, like no 300 grams of carbs. Keep it low and make up for the energy from that with the fat, because you actually have to take in enough to nourish you and your baby. That's absolutely crucial during your pregnancy. So that's the kind of diet that really works. And I'm doing a live class on this week, where I'm going to talk about what really works for a gestational diabetes diet to either prevent it or to work with it. And most women who follow, and there's other things too, like exercise plays a part in increasing insulin sensitivity, so exercise is important. There's more to know for sure, which is why it goes outside the scope of this scope. But really, when you know the basics, you can prevent gestational diabetes. I mean, I know I did a case study on a gal named Megan who had really, really severe gestational diabetes during her previous pregnancies, and with her 5th baby, she decided she really wanted to make a radical change and try something radically different because she didn't want to be on insulin. And she was able to treat through diet alone with the exception of one medication to help control fasting glucose levels. But she felt like that was much better than having to do multiple daily insulin shots. And her doctor was just really astounded at what she was doing. And it was even a military hospital that the doctor was willing to let her work with and kind of direct her own care while he oversaw it. But he was willing to trust her in the research that she'd done. It was really kind of incredible. So I'm going to talk about all that information in the class, which you can check out at birthbabylife.com/GD. So the letter G and the letter D. birthbabylife.com/GD. I'm actually going to teach that on Thursday night, so I'll mention it to you again on the scope tomorrow, and then also on Thursday's scope. But I hope that this has been at least enlightening, I guess, because I think that so often we don't really question conventional wisdom, or we figure, okay, well, they've decided that this is totally incurable or that this is totally unpreventable, and so that must be the way that it is because surely they would know. Or with something like the gestational diabetes diet, we think, okay, well, this has been around for a long time, and so they've been using this diet for years, so surely it's the best for moms and babies. But the reality is that's not the case. That's not the case for a lot of things that have to do with pregnancy and birth. And I hate to say it, but with gestational diabetes, I don't even know that it's been so much as entrenched medical establishment as it has been with insurance reimbursement. Because insurance companies give more money when they can fill out little codes for diagnoses. So that's something that's kind of tackled in those questions of, is this really real, or is this really valid, or are we going about this in the right way? But yeah, so that's where we're at with that. But I mean, what we need to know, bottom line, as moms, is that what we're being advised to do maybe isn't the best thing to do, and maybe will not only not solve the problem, but might contribute to the problem. So we need to make a different choice for our babies. And the benefit of it is when you become aware of this, and I've heard some people say that it's a blessing to get this diagnosis or hear murmurings of it, but you can make changes for your health in your pregnancy, and then those transfer into lifelong changes for the health of you and your baby. And one more quick thing before we finish this scope, because I've got to go teach here in 5 minutes, but is one important thing to know is that when your baby experiences starvation conditions in the womb, it programs his or her body differently than if a baby is well nourished in the womb. So if you follow a low-calorie, low-salt diet while you're pregnant with your baby, then your baby's body is programmed to think that anytime it gets enough food, it should hoard it. So throughout your baby's life, he or she is going to be fighting that little switch that got flipped prenatally. And that's not what we want for our babies. When we're well nourished during pregnancy, our baby's bodies think, okay, Essentially, the world is a place where there's enough food, and when I get food, I can process it and be done with it. I don't need to hoard it. So probably, in addition to what it does to wreak havoc for our bodies and our baby's bodies in the womb, when we're having problems with blood sugar and then we follow this low-calorie diet that's literally just pouring sugar, even if it's dressed up as a whole grain, into our bodies. But the biggest thing that we're doing is we're eating what is essentially a low-calorie, aka starvation diet for a pregnant body, and we're programming our babies' bodies that they're being born into a world where starvation is the norm and they need to hoard everything, which makes them more prone to obesity. It makes them more prone to diabetes in their life. It's not the programming that you want to set your baby up with. So think about that. And then think about why it may be worth looking for an alternative. And if you want to hear the live class, it'll be live. We'll do it Thursday night Eastern time. You can come with questions. I'll have the presentation beforehand, then open it for questions. It's geared to moms who are worried, moms who have been diagnosed, moms who had gestational diabetes in a previous pregnancy and want to get ready for another one. But we'll be there. Remember, you can go to it at the shortcut, which is birthbabylife.com/GD. I would love to have you there. And before then, I will talk to you again on tomorrow's scope and on Thursday during the day, and then we'll do the class Thursday night. And you can also check out this scope and the other scopes live on naturalbirthandbabycare.com by going to birthbabylife.com/scopes. But don't miss the class, birthbabylife.com/GD, and I will talk to you tomorrow.